Hello everyone, welcome to probably one of the most iconic LEGO Star Wars reviews because, of course, it's another Millennium Falcon, but most people genuinely just remember the Millennium Falcon, so this shouldn't be any difference. Now, this is from the sequel trilogy, so that might do something with it, but anyways, this is still a very nice Millennium Falcon. The only thing is it just recently have a $10 price hike from $160 to $170, so it will be interesting to see if the value still holds true. But we do get 7 minifigures, which is very nice. We do get Lando Calrissian, Chewbacca, C-3PO, Finn, Bulio, R2-D2, and Dio, which is a very healthy selection of minifigures. Probably a good choice for the scenes. Of course, many people will probably want that Lando Calrissian minifigure. Bulio probably also pretty interesting. Definitely some nice figures there to include with this set because it is large and nice. But it has landed on the back of the box, showing a decent glimpse into the interior with the 2 cannon slots, the seating area, the spring-loaded shooters, the cockpit, and also the storage area. It's got a lot of space for a ship, and it can help you recreate a lot of iconic moments, which is always very nice. Now, Dio is a small canvas to work with, but they are still a nice minifigure to get. Now they do have a collection of green and light gray, along with their main body being white. Now they do have their green nose and 3 headlines, with the other side of them holding that connection between their head and their wheel so that they can spin about and have a good day. Next up, we've got R2-D2 in typical R2-D2 fashion with all of their mechanical bits there, his arms to kind of help out with his various tool sets, and his internal storage. He does have a head, which is dome-shaped as would be imagined. He does have his cameras and his sensors up there, as well as his little blue dashing lines that go through all around, along with other mechanical bits. It's a nice figure to get. Doesn't have too much special detailing, but he does have those rocket thrusters, so you can't imagine what you'd have without him. Wrapping up our droids is going to be C-3PO here, which is fully gold except for the sliver of silver that's going to be on his leg right there. It isn't as fleshed out as the UCS Landspeeder C-3PO, but still, it's pretty nice to have. He does have a little bit of wiring there, going from his knees over to his center cavity there, which is exposed and contains all of his wires there, and his underskeleton. Now he does have a bit more to him because if you look up, he still has a bit of gold left to him. Now he does have that large spherical center in the center of him, and then also that little collar that goes around or next to his neck. But he also does have those beady eyes which will stare into your soul for about a few hours before you kind of go along with it and have a decent time. On the back, he has that extra cavity that sticks out, but he also has a continuation of those stomach wires from his underskeleton there, so it's a pretty nice figure to get. Doesn't have anything special to him, but he's still a nice inclusion nonetheless. Bolio here is exclusive with his spy outfit here, or more specifically his work attire, because this is how he looks while he's working. Now, he does have this kind of orange tan look to him, with some belts there going around. Not too sure what exactly he is doing, but he does have a bunch of belts and also a bit of armor piercing there, or like at least a pocket there next to his name tag, which is the only thing that I could assume that is. Probably a bit of spy information. Now, he does have a bunch of horns and a green head, and just honestly that lovable expression, which is just the mouth slightly open there, giving him the finest detail possible. Now on the back, he's just as confusing, looking like he's got himself an oxygen mask kind of taped to his back, and then going into his back or lower back, which is kind of weird, I must say. I'm pretty confused with what exactly this minifigure is doing, but they do have some kind of wrinkles on their head, which is pretty interesting, and also a neck of all things. We don't normally see one of those on many LEGO minifigures, but Bolio here does have one. Now, Finn is in a bit of horror, but we're not quite sure why. He does have himself a little bit of leg detailing there, with a bit of a holster for his blaster there. He does have Poe's jacket here, which is slightly blocked by his shoulder pouch, but it's not blocking too much detail. He does have himself all the details that you might expect, with a bunch of pockets to store all stuff. Kind of a dark tan undershirt there, which you can see past his jacket, also on his sleeves. And again, that scared expression there, with some spiky hair to boot. Now on the back, he does have really no detail, but he does have a happier expression, probably one after he's dealt with whatever he was scared of in the first place. Chewbacca looks like you'd expect Chewbacca to look, with some fur details on his legs, and then using one large piece to kind of express the rest of him, because underneath it's just brown. So there isn't much to cover there, but on top he does have his little bit of a strap that he keeps, with some lighter fur going around his face, with his snout or mouth being a bit of a darker color. He does have his regular eyes, and he has the stud shooter bowcaster with him, which is pretty interesting. You can pick it up, and if we move and look a little bit towards that building over there at the cantina display, we can fire it, and it's gone forever now. But it is an option with this set. If we find Chewbacca again, we can look ahead at the back, which just has the continuation of the strap and the flowiness of his fur back again, but one more minifigure to go. Now, Lando Calrissian is pretty special in this set. For one, no leg printing, but that's not the special part. He does have his classic yellow jacket there, which does have a bit of a strap there, probably for his extra munitions that he's carrying with him. But he also has a dual-sided cape on the side that we can see. Currently, we can see that beautiful light blue, with himself having a little bit of a staff there, holding it down a little bit for extra support. But he also has his larger blaster, which has one of those rail pieces attached to it, one that you might see on a bulldozer or something else, or like the tread of anything really. And he's using that for extra support on his blaster. Now, he is a bit angry now. He's dealing with some threats currently, which are trying to steal his cargo. But he also does have a bit of older hair, one that you might see on an officer of sorts. But it's there, and he's dealing with it perfectly fine. Now, his second face is a bit more relaxed. Still a bit angry, but not as expressive as before. But it is a little bit difficult to change it without taking off the capes. However, if you take off the capes, you can easily just take off the head and switch it around too. But unless you are trying to change his head, there's no real point to taking off the cape, because there's not too much detailing on there whatsoever. There's just that strap, which wasn't hiding anything to begin with. But the back of his cape here is made of black, but it still looks pretty good. It kind of fleshes out his design, and that's basically what you'd want to see. It's the time you were all waiting for, time to review the Falcon. Now let's start off with the front end here, which, as you can see, does have a little bit of red lasers at the front, but you can also fire off some spring-loaded shooters. You do want to be a little bit careful, because you can press too hard and then it doesn't go fully, but if you just press lightly, you can launch them out, which is pretty fun. So you can do that, of course. We also have another one on this side. However, we're not going to fire that one out, because I might lose both of them. Now, if we move up, we do have this long little bit here, which would normally connect over to the escape pod. However, that is exclusive to the Han Solo movie version, which was in white and blue. So we don't really have that in this one. However, we do have a bunch of other stuff. We've got ourselves an antenna dish, which you want to be pretty careful about, but it's there. And also, as you can see throughout, we have the primary colors here as light gray and dark gray, but we also have mixtures of dark tan and dark red here, with this little bit of green, but it doesn't appear anywhere else, so I think it's not too important there. But if we move on to this side further on, we can see more greebling, but we can also see some bullet holes, and also the little exterior edge, which has a bunch of greebling details, leading us to our first little entrance port where we can dock other ships and kind of get a bunch of stuff done. Moving on with the greebling, there's a bunch more little details which take us onto the engines, which look very good here. Now the rest of it is basically a mimicking pattern, leading us all the way back to our other exit port. On the top of this area, though, we do have all the little exhaust ports, which is very nice to see. A little bit less kind of color variance here, as we do have less of that dark tan and dark red, but still a very nice looking design. It uses a lot of color pieces, but the wear and tear does kind of match up with what you'd expect from the Falcon. Now we do also in this have the little bit of sticker detailing leading to the main cockpit, but we'll get to the cockpit later because the only thing that's really accessible from the exterior side from the cockpit is really this turret, which you can move around and fire at willingly, or just fire at anybody really that you want to. But if you open this up, we can go ahead and slide out this little tray where we have Chewie firing at somebody down there. It's not too much space to fit any minifigures on, but if you have Chewie, you can only really fit one. If you use other minifigures, you might be able to fit two, but it is a little bit iffy depending on who you use. Now, we do get this nice sticker detailing, which you really have to press up against the top edge to really get right. Unfortunately, I didn't really get that lucky with this sticker placement, but it still looks relatively good. We also have this little panel which opens up to kind of give the curvature that you need. But moving into the cockpit, which is going to be our last exterior element, is going to show us Dio in the little Dio slot, and then two other seats for other characters with a little bit of an antenna and some control panels so that you can lock everything away. The fun part is that this cockpit uses a printed piece, so you don't have to worry about getting the sticker wrong, which is always very nice. It's a very big set, but we still have an entire interior to cover. If you want to access the interior, all you have to do is flip this panel down first, and then go and do the side panels for the front, which will open you up to this area, and for the back, you can just open them in any order, being careful of the edges because they might hit something, especially with this top piece and the central piece for the turret. But opening all of those up, you can get yourself access into the main area, which is very nice. Starting off over here towards the front next to the cockpit, we do have ourselves a little bit of a storage bin. Now, there are a few storage bins located around the place, however, they are pretty much empty, so you can basically fill them with what you want, whether you want to fill them with the weapons that you get in this set or something else of your choosing. Moving on down, we have a little bit of a maintenance bay with a bit of a swivel chair that you can move around. It is in tan. It does have a bit of a bar, so you can have someone basically laying down. If I grab Finn here, we can have them sitting there, kind of just relaxing after they've done a hard day's work. It is a little bit difficult to fit minifigures, depending on their accessories, but it's a nice chair nonetheless. And then we have the little bit of the relax area here with these tan sofas, which have a great sticker backing. You do need to do that a few times over, which is the only unfortunate part, but you can also have access to the game table, which is this shield piece. So it can fall over, but if it's just flat like that, it looks pretty good. Now moving on, we do have the first access ramp, which doesn't have too much except for on the interior side. It does have a little bit of a control panel, which is pretty nice. Nothing more though. Moving on, we have some sleeping quarters, so you can have your characters rest up for their next mission. We do also have a little bit of an energy coil, which is probably not the best thing next to a bed, but it's there. So if you want to have some accidental electrocutions, that may be possible with this set. Now moving on, we do have access to the little storage compartment where a handy dandy R2-D2 has been hiding. You can fit a regular minifigure in there pretty easily, and they can fit quite snug. It might lift up a little bit depending on what character you use, but relatively you shouldn't have any trouble hiding someone away down there. Now moving on, we do have another storage crate, which unfortunately also empty. So you do have a lot of empty storage crates. I believe there are only two, which doesn't really make too much sense, as you probably want more storage. But we also have a little bit of a kitchen area, which is quite small, to be frank. There's only one chair, a cup, and then also a frying pan, which is kind of weird. There wouldn't be much more than that, but I believe we've still got one more thing to cover. Is that because over there we don't really have any kind of control panel, but what we do have, if you can reach inside, is the little drop-down hatch. Now I'm going to close this up. Now you won't normally have a look at it from the underside, however you do have another little turret there, which Chewbacca would be currently controlling. We also do have access to the ramp, I believe that's the ramp. It is a little bit difficult to push it down from the bottom, so you are going to want to push that down first, and then you're going to want to deal with it. But we can also see another look of that bottom hatch, and also the very small landing gears here that attach. They're not as grand as the ones that you'd see on the UCS set, but it kind of makes sense that they're nothing special. But the ramp is pretty kind of dull. You can kind of put it there, but you're not really going to have too great access, because if I turn it around again, it does kind of open up, but the space underneath here isn't that great. So realistically, if we just use Finn as an example here, he is a little bit bent over, but he is not going to have a good time fitting under there. So the ramp is not really that useful to get people in there, but the top opens up very well, so you can just easily have a good time putting them in through the top. So overall, you've got a lot of top detail. The landing gears are a little bit sad, but the rest of the build does make up for it. Is it worth the $170? I think that's for you to decide how much you really want a Millennium Falcon. It definitely has a lot of iconic scenes that it's in, but some people might be thrown off or torn on it because of the fact that it's from the sequel trilogy. So realistically, it's up for you whether you want to buy this. In my opinion, I think it's definitely got some versatility and some good elements. However, do I think this is the ship for everybody? No, I don't, which is why I would say you really want to look into it, see what your heart says, and then you want to decide whether you want to pick this up. It also does go on sale for a decent bit. It did go on sale for a while for $128, so at that point, that's when I picked it up. So for $170, I think that's definitely a large bullet to swallow. But I do hope that you enjoyed. See you next time. Bye.